Welcome to the Fresh and Fired Up podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Dremilymarshall, here with my amazing co-host, the wild, wonderful Haley Pindle. We are here to help you function at your best in health, fitness, and life. Let's get fired up.
Let's get fired up.
Whoop, whoop. Okay. We are in good moods this morning because we called each other early so we could rant about all the stuff we're annoyed by so that you guys get to hear all the good stuff.
Exactly. Now we're in a good chipper mood. We got the complainers out.
In case you guys thought that we're just always in a good mood, it's not actually true. We do have days when we're in bad moods. Although, I don't know, Haley, what do you think? I don't let windows of moods affect my whole day. And I think that's a hugely helpful thing where it's like, if you feel like you're having a bad morning, it doesn't mean the whole day has to be a bad day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I think that's more of things in momentum, like to stay in momentum. So sometimes when we have a really bad morning, we just like to wallow and be like, oh, it's such a bad morning, I'm gonna have a bad day. And you just like relate that day to your morning solely rather than looking at it zoomed out as a whole and like, wow, my afternoon was actually amazing. And you get to choose whether you think of it as an amazing day or a terrible day. So
I know I've heard this from Ed Milet. You know Ed Milet?
Yeah.
Okay, he chunks up his days. He visualizes his days as 3 days in one. So it's like the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. And it's like he resets his mindset as if it's like a new day so that he doesn't carry over anything, like dragging anything behind from how his morning went into his afternoon, et cetera. And I'm like, oh, it's interesting. You can kind of hack your mind a bit with that sort of thing. Right?
Do you know how he does that? Like, how does he go about resetting?
I don't remember. Come on, you're expecting so much of me on the spot.
Well, you're the one who brought it up.
No, I
have questions.
All I remember is that it's like I think it's just that he makes the decision, right? That he's like the awareness of it. He does it with like his scheduling, but then also just the mindset from what I remember, just like the mindset of knowing like, okay, fresh start. He also says like the everyday day one thing is like, I'm going to work like as if it's day one, like when you're enthusiastic about, I'm starting into my project or I'm starting into my workout program and it's day one and I'm into it and we're going. You need to treat, if you want to he always talks about maxing out, right? And making like maximal effort, maximal gains. And it's like, well, you need to treat every day with like a first day attitude where you have that much enthusiasm and passion. Because what often happens is we burn super bright and then we start to fizzle out and we're like, I'm not I don't want to do this now.
Yeah. Or something happens where like you hit a ceiling of uncomfort or you feel uncomfortable. And I think people have this so backwards where like you think success is like people who succeed. They just feel all this, woo, I'm motivated every single day, every time, everything is motivational. But it's like you just have to be able to endure pain for a long enough period of time. That's literally it.
Yeah, sometimes it's mental internal pain, sometimes it's physical pain. And you're always gonna, you know how people say choose your hard?
Yeah.
Well, something's always gonna come up, right?
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, so what does that look like and how am I going to move through it? So this happened to me recently. Okay, I'll give the example of my toe. I have this big toe issue on my left side that I injured in gymnastics. It seems stupid. It's literally, it's my toe. It has clicked ever since I fell funny on it, since I was like 10 years old probably. And I remember being a kid and being like, I feel like that shouldn't click like that. I feel like it feels really mechanical. But, when you're like a 12-year-old and it's like, something's weird with my toe, people are just like, okay, cool, you're fine.
Amputate it.
You'll be fine. Like, why are you complaining about this? So I just didn't complain about it. But now that toe is definitely more rigid than like my other foot. And I do a lot of stretches and all of that with it. But when I go to do lunges, like a walking lunge, I could easily add way more weight for like how strong my thighs are and my glutes. But my stupid toe is like, oh, this is painful. I can't like roll over my toe. It makes me feel like an old person. But the other side's fine. And so what I'm saying with this is I adapt to, I have days where my toe feels worse or my toe feels better, and I will adapt and move through it based on that feeling. So For example, not that I'm like going light on it, but I'll modify my exercise. So what I'll do is like I'll have a day where I'm like, man, I can't really walk through my lunge very well while being weighted. So I'll just do more of like a split squat where I'm just staying stationary and I'm not having to have as much movement through that toe. And sometimes all I have to do is like one set of that and it kind of gets the toe moving. And I'm like, oh, actually, it's already feeling better. And then I can start to walk for my second or third set. And so I'm bringing this up because it's like there's pain there, right? Well, I could just be like, I'm never doing another lunge day in my life, or I'm never running again in my life because it also hurts when I run. But what I do is I just adapt the tempo and the timing, the intensity, the amount of weight to kind of move through the issue, right? And I think we can do that for anything rather than just stopping. It kind of comes back to why does it always come back to our all or nothing? But it kind of does come back to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely it does. And I feel like you can use it as a bit of an excuse. And like I can relate this back to, I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but when I did my half marathon and I royally screwed my hip up,
Yes.
um, it's interesting because in that moment, like I was on crutches for like I
Oh,
think a week. It was super
yes.
bad. And when it's that bad, you're like, I'm never ever going to be able to do what I love again. It's so defeating. But like when you take those baby steps forward, like you just start getting to the walking phase, and then I started like lifting very lightly, putting a little bit more weight on it. You start to kind of build that trust with yourself. I know that we've talked about this before, like coming back from an injury and building that trust again that your body can
Yes.
handle it. But oh god, it's really frustrating when you're in that like you're fresh out of the injury and it's
Yeah,
like it's
totally.
so painful. But yeah, that's what I was getting
But
at.
you can either be experience where we were going with this is like there's always going to be some sort of pain to endure. There's always going to be something that pops up. If you resolve in your mind that that is just part of life and part of the journey and part of being human, then what you can do is say, well, which heart are you picking? Because if we come back to the example of my toe, if I did nothing and didn't move, it's actually worse on days. Let's say we're on a road trip or we're on a flight and I've been sitting for 10 hours or something ridiculous that I don't normally do. And then I stand up, I'm like, oh, I can barely step on my feet. My feet hurt so much more. I'm not kidding when I'm immobile. So, in other words, if I was like inactive and sedentary all the time with that exact same simple injury, simple example, uh, it would probably more arthritic. There's probably like a little bit of arthritis in there, like osteoarthritis. But when an osteoarthritic joint is immobile, it progresses way faster. So are you going to be in pain from sedentary arthritis? Or are you going to be in pain from, oh, okay, I've put some pressure on this. I'm kind of forced my joint to move, which is going to delay the onset of arthritic change in the joint, but it is still going to feel uncomfortable in that it still might feel kind of tight and it still might feel kind of pinchy or nervy, and it's like that's okay. It's going to be better than your alternative. You're
Yeah,
probably going to experience pain either way.
absolutely. I think you nailed it on the nose. Like, and it's same goes for what we talk about all the time in like health or nutrition. Like, choose your heart. It's so easy to choose the easy route in the moment, but like that delayed gratification of like you might be paying for it later, and there's always a price to pay for whatever choice you make in the moment. And always choose better for your future self. So in your case, like getting that mobile, and same for myself, like be freaking proactive with your injuries. Firstly, don't just push them off because I promise you it will leave you worse off. So go to physio, go to a chiropractor, I don't care, go get that recovered if
Yeah.
you actually want to like move better and move more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually I think I'm doing a post. Alexis is posting it today, but it's that kind of say everyone you've probably heard this word, but like I can do it myself. I can do it myself. It's fine. I can do it myself.
That's what toddlers say all the time.
It gets me so livid because it's like your ego is so big that you can't like ask for help. I think that's the most ridiculous thing. If you can't ask for help, like why wouldn't you want to learn from somebody like yourself if you're injured? Like you can help somebody a lot more than someone could just be like sitting on the couch. Oh, it's fine. It'll just go away. I can do this.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And this is what's funny. And sometimes when you're the person in pain or the person who's endured the issue, so this is a really, so my toe is something that's kind of always there and it ebbs and flows. But the worst one is if my back bothers me. It's interesting, right? Often you get into a profession that you've had an experience in. Like I injured my back in gymnastics. I started going to see a chiropractor, was treated really well. They got me back into my sport. I loved my chiropractor growing up, used it my whole gymnastics career. And I was like, this is great. I should become a chiropractor. They're so helpful, right? So I think a lot of people have a story like that with the direction they go with their careers. And so, of course, that injury, it was a bad one. It was the worst in 2009, my world championships. I've brought this up on another episode where I could barely walk, basically. Similar to what you're saying with your hip, Haley. And so sometimes it rears its ugly head again. And it actually just did this week, which of all things. And I think it's because I was doing a ton of driving last week. And like I said, right, a lot, this is my guess. I mean, there's lots of different things, it's always like what caused it to flare up. Sometimes we don't know exactly what, but what I found with it is even though I obviously have a solid foundation of what to do with when someone injures their back, because I'm the one in pain, I am now kind of in the position of the patient. I will still have discussions with my husband, who is a chiropractor, who's like, "Hun, these are the symptoms I'm getting. This symptom's a little bit different than like it has been in the past. Do you think I should go? Like, do you think I need imaging? I could just decide in my own brain, oh, I should go and redo my x-rays or get a CT or like, let's get you in for an MRI. But I ask him because I'm like, you also need, this is just back to your point of asking for help. Even if you have an expertise in an area, if you're the one who's in the valley, you need someone with a different perspective than you to be like, no, I think you should give it a few days. I got adjusted. I got acupuncture done. It relieved the symptomology a lot. And so then it tells you, oh, this can relieve, even though it's not fully back to 100%. It gives you the idea of like, oh, yeah, it is totally coming from this area versus if you do conservative care like a physio or you're getting acupuncture or chiropractic adjustments and nothing's changing or it's just digressing and getting worse, then you have to ask, is there something else underlying, a different medical condition, a tumor that's pressing against a nerve, like something more that needs a different type of care, right? Mm-hmm. But you need to give space and time and a perspective from someone else to be able to see that. Because when you're in the moment of severe pain, you're not going to be thinking as clearly, even if you have a background. So mm-hmm. those types of scenarios, getting help and like setting your ego aside is extremely beneficial.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up too, like you can go to different doctors or different specialties and it might not fix the problem. And I think that can leave people all the more frustrated and like blamey-ish, yeah. Really like blaming the healthcare and stuff, where it's like, the only way you get to lose is if you give up. So just because that avenue wasn't correct, like I've come across this so much where like people don't have cycles, they go to their doctors, they trust them, but right. All they do is like push the pill. They go to the gyno, push the pill, push the pill, push the pill, push the pill.
They've lost trust.
Yeah. If you give up, that's the only way that you're going to lose. I like to relate it back to like if you ever had a really bad relationship and then just sworn off all men just because of that one person, that robs you from actually healing. Like if you actually want to get to a point where you can move pain-free, you're going to rob yourself if you just quit and just write off all the people who quote unquote failed you. Right? So
if you get a bad haircut, you're never getting your haircut again, or you're just going to another hairdresser, probably, right?
Exactly.
Probably go to another hair, unless you want really long hair, but the ends might get kind of dead. You can probably go with a dreadlock. You need to?
Yeah, I haven't got my haircut in like a year.
Ooh, I just got mine cut the other day.
It's so refreshing.
So refreshing. So side note, we're talking about burnout, overtraining, and injuries, but also go get a haircut. It's so refreshing.
Speaking of burnout, I told Emily about my little issues lately, personal life. Anyways, I've been definitely feeling like a little bit burnt out, and my watch is kind of yelling at me saying my HRV is super low.
Oh, Your watch is like,
My watch
listen.
is like, Haley, you need to relax.
Yep.
So anyways, what I've proactively done this weekend is I'm getting massage. I should probably get my hair cut too. Just some more healthcare, self-care,
So healthcare, self-care.
healthcare, self-care. But anyways, what I'm trying to get to, the point of that is like be
What is the
proactive.
point? No, I'm kidding.
What?
I'm just heckling you. I was like, yeah, yeah. Okay, what is the point? No, I'm kidding.
I like to like go around in my sentences and make you confused. It's my little
It's okay.
tactic
I
of
do the same.
manipulation. Make some time to do some like self-care, especially if you are feeling like, I think people like, if you're overtraining too, like training and pushing your body to that extent is a stressor, but you also have that like personal life, or if your job is really demanding and you can't turn your brain off at, like, I've been not being able to turn my brain off, and so I've been having really crappy sleeps, and that's just like contributing. Your body can't decipher like what is a lion you're trying to run from and what is like a perceived thing that's not like a threat, but is like your job. Like, your life is not threatened, but your body doesn't know that. It thinks it just takes fear and threat as a threat, and it goes into like stress mode. And obviously, stress is not bad for you, but chronic stress can be. So when it's accumulating and then your body is trying to give you signs, like for example, like preach like really healthy periods. My period's been late twice because I need to take care of myself a little bit more.
Yes.
But like, pay attention. Like what I used to do, I used to just be like, oh, it'll come back. It'll be fine. But be proactive. Your body tells you so much about what it needs. And right now, it's needing a little bit more relaxation, a little bit more step back. Like, listen to it, because again, it doesn't know what a perceived stress is and what an actual physical stressor is. Okay. And that leads to burnout, being in that chronically stressed out mode, um,
And
which is crazy. Yeah.
is so much about that is your reactivity to your
Mm-hmm.
external environment. So, what is your internal reaction to what's going on around you? And so, this is where it's like, well, some people are like, okay, great. Yeah, thanks. You're telling me not to be stressed out, but I've got all these stressful things going on in my life. Okay. You cannot control that there's stressors going on, that someone has inconvenienced you, or like, without getting into all the details, it's like when you are in working relationships, even you have, whether it's you're an employer and you have employees, or you have tenants, or you have clients, like all of these things, it's like things pop up for everyone. And all of a sudden, all these stressful situations are rising. That's like, well, how are you going to handle this? Right. And what are ways that you can handle this? Versus you don't always have the option to just run from the stress and ignore it, right? Sometimes we do, because sometimes we're busying ourselves, or we're like, oh, but I just need to do this and then this and then this, and it's like, really, do you need to do that all right now, or can you just go to bed? So for example, I have a client who, we do our client check-ins, Haley,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking at different metrics of things other than just, well, what's your weight on the scale, right? That is like one of the least important things when it comes to the metrics that we look at. Like, where are you at in your cycle? How has your mood been? Your energy levels, your bowel movements, your what was the other one that I was thinking? What are
Hunger,
the other ones?
water,
Yeah,
sleep. Yeah.
all of those different metrics. Sleep, thank you, that's what I was getting at. So as I was doing the check-in and going through what this client has going on, she's consistently getting 6.5 hours of sleep. And so I'm like, okay, we got to really try to get some more sleep. If you're sleeping more, that's going to be super helpful for your training, your nutrition, staying on track, your body's recovery. So it was interesting because got a message just saying, oh, I had a migraine and I ended up sleeping for 10 hours that night. And I was like, good. Yes, you had a migraine. You went to bed. Like, sure, you probably could have used an adjustment too. But I'm so glad in that moment you didn't try to push through and do a million other things when your body literally just needs to go to bed earlier and sleep for the amount of time, whatever it needs. In this case, it was 10 hours. And I was like, yes. So I was trying to reinforce that's a huge win, because how many times do we ignore those signals and say, oh, I'm just going to get 6 other things done and I'm still only going to get 6 hours of sleep and I'm going to wake up the next day expecting to feel better? No, you're not going to feel better. You need to go to bed at that point, right? And so that, just to kind of bring home the example of giving yourself permission to go to bed early, or if you have the opportunity, because I know depending on where you're working, you might not have the opportunity to take an afternoon nap, but you've talked about this before, Haley, is like we've all had days where we're like, I just literally need to go lay down, even if it's for 10 minutes. If you're able to do that, like maybe don't do that at your place of work.
Sometimes I do.
Well, if you can. Well, it's like even when my sister, she's a maternity ward nurse and they do night shifts, and they have a spot where if there's no births happening, you can actually like lay down technically or at
Mhm.
work. They can like sleep for chunks of time if it's not interrupting their, or rest, if it's not interrupting their taking care of
Yeah, I think
patients.
that's such an interesting structure too. Like the more I think about my own energy patterns and my own focus patterns, like expecting to work for 8 hours straight. Like what? It's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
what? There's no way my brain is able to do that. But I think that's super interesting how that's all structured. But
Yeah, just different professions, even when you're doing
yeah.
12-hour shifts, or
Yeah.
like I think about, we have, especially this area, we get a lot of light in the summer, right? Over here it's like, it's not dark for very long. And of course summer is construction season and
Ugh.
farming and ranching and all the stuff. But then we have these really long days. So we get people coming into the clinic and they're like, "Oh yeah, I've been working like 16, 18-hour days." And you're like, "You work 18-hour day?" Like, I guess in a sense, we're being entrepreneurs, we do work long
Mhm.
hours in weird ways where you're like putting stuff on media and this and that. But when you're like straight sitting in a combine for 16 hours, or like standing, like turning a construction sign, that's a lot on your body and mind. I'm like, wow.
Yes. Yes. I just like as being entrepreneurs, you can kind of switch what work you're doing so it can kind of break it up. But if you're
Very
doing
it.
one thing, like Justin does one thing, like he does software developing, and gosh, I don't know how he does it because it's just
Just
like
does it straight.
straight and he works really long hours sometimes. I'm like,
Does he
girl,
do like the 10, 12-hour shifts, or what does he do?
like 16-hour shit.
Oh, so he
Yeah.
is in that category. That is so
Yeah.
intense.
It's
Yeah.
oh, that poor man. Anyways, it's not me, but
Yeah.
go
But
him.
like
He needs to bring home
my
some money.
yeah, bring home some money, honey. But no, but it is one of those things where like I think that whole tangent was about, there's gonna be variability based on what you're doing for work as to how you can structure getting in rest and things that are good for your brain and body, and kind of
Mhm.
like lowering that stress response. In other words, it's going to look different for everyone, but try to get creative with it and see like, when do you have gaps in your day
Mhm.
and what's going to be more restorative for you. We just talked about this recently with clients, right? Like, it's like, is sitting and scrolling on your phone going to be the most restorative thing in this window of time that you have? Well, it perpetuates like an addictive behavior in your brain, so probably not the most rejuvenating for your brain.
Yeah.
So, is there something else you could do in that time slot instead that's going to allow your cortisol levels to lower? And especially because, depending on what you're viewing with your online scrolling in your downtime, is it stuff that's actually raising your stress levels subconsciously because of whatever you're feeding into your brain?
Yeah.
Like, for example, people will say they'll listen to these podcasts that are like intense, like murder mystery, serial killer, whatever. Like, sure, okay, but all I'm saying is, if you're listening to it and you're like, it's stressing you out and you're already stressed out, then you need to pick something else to calm
Yes.
you.
Absolutely. I am very guilty of that. It was super funny because like I listen to these things sometimes. It just pops up and I'm like, I can't scroll away.
Oh,
Pops up when I'm like in bed and it's
oh dear.
nighttime and it's I've been invested in this like Brian Koberger one of the
Oh my goodness.
Ohio things. Anyways, people probably know what I'm talking about. Definitely listen to Emily. She is way more correct on this. So,
Thanks.
anyways, I have also switched some like scrolling is not like sometimes I do like an hour of scrolling a day. Like it's not inherently bad. You do deserve some downtime if
Yes.
you want to go and
Yes.
scroll for an hour. Go for it. Recently, my scrolling pages and you can train the algorithm to show you things that are actually semi valuable. My semi valuable screen time has been dedicated to orca whales. I have been I've been learning everything and anything about sharks and orca whales.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah. So
It's something different when you have something different and that's just fun and stimulating for your brain, right? Like
yeah.
it's what's going to help you to relax is what we're getting at with this because we're addressing if your body's in a state of burnout. And how this ties into injuries is like, okay, if you are already high stress, not taking care, not allowing yourself to get enough sleep at night, which you should really be aiming for 8 hours of sleep. And if you're at 6, try upping it to 7 even.
Yeah.
And then 7.5. And that like work your way up if you can. And all that is best way to do that is to push back or how am I saying this? Push back. Does that make sense? Move up your bedtime. Like go to bed earlier. That's
Oh.
what I'm trying to say. She's like, I don't know what you're trying to say. Okay, let's just pretend that made sense. Go to bed earlier and you can just start by even like 15 or half hour increments of trying to get to bed earlier is what I was trying to get at, especially if you're trying to do morning workouts.
Yeah, I also wanted to touch on that too, of like knowing which situation you're in because everyone is so situational. Like some people need to pull back their discipline and some people need to practice a little bit more discipline. So
Yes.
in terms of like if you're experiencing burnout and you're a really high achieving kind of person, maybe getting some extra sleep rather than waking up at 5 a.m. to do your workout might be more beneficial, right? Like that's kind of what
Yes.
I've been in the era of like, I'm not going to push myself really hard because I know my nervous system has already been really tanked, right? So I sleep is much more valuable for me in this era of time.
Yes.
However, like when you are in a less stressed state in your personal life or mental like capacity, work, whatever, then you can maybe push a little bit more on the discipline side. But it's just like learning to ebb and flow and know where you're at because it's so situational from person to person.
Yes. And building in, I don't remember the last time we talked about this. So if it was recent, I apologize, but maybe you just need to hear it again. Building in, and this is what we do with our clients, right? It's like building in the ability to be adaptable. So, for example, if you are starting your exercise program and you're like, I'm going to work out 7 days a week, which you should not be doing anyways. I'm going to be in the gym 7 days a week. It's like you now have no leeway for you have instantly like set yourself up to fail because you're like, there's no way for an extended period of time you're going to be lifting weights 7 days a week. That's an extreme example. But if you're like, okay, my minimum is I want to get four weight room sessions in every week. Now I can say my weight room sessions are set up on Monday, Tuesday. If something happens on a Tuesday, I'm going to do my Tuesday workout on the Wednesday because I needed to rest. I really felt like I needed to rest on Tuesday. So now I've rested and rejuvenated and I'm way less likely to injure myself doing that workout on the Wednesday. Then I have it set up with an upper and a lower body on a Thursday and a Friday. Well, let's say same thing happens. I like hit Friday and I'm like, I'm tanked. It's been a long week. I am going to sleep that day. I'm going to rest. And then I'm going to be in the weight room on Saturday. Occasionally it happens that, something else pops up with like, for me, it's like with kids or we have to get somewhere, we're traveling. Then I just leave Sunday as a rest day. But if my week has filtered through that I'm like, oh man, I didn't get my fourth weight room session in, I will do it on a Sunday. So it's built in that I won't miss it. So it's reinforcing in my brain that I'm constantly succeeding at sticking with my goal, but it's in a way that allows me to plug and play in rest. So I also have weeks where I'm like guns blazing, full energy, feel great, in bed early, at a good phase in my cycle, and I'll be up all 7 days and I'll be like, I'll have done my weight room sessions. I'll use that early time to walk, run, do extra stretching, add in, different ab and body work if I want, depending, right? Or I might do some gymnastics. So I'm saying that is because, yeah, there are weeks where you can be in the gym or, out being active 7 days a week. But there's going to be weeks when you're not able to do that capacity wise, physically, mentally, emotionally, all those things.
Exactly. And I think that just kind of touches on how important it is to have realistic expectations of yourself. And like you mentioned before, people come out of the gates gung ho, woohoo, 7 days a week. I'm not going to take a rest day. I'm going to take an active rest day. And then I love those little active rest days. And then you get to a point where one week is super busy and you miss a workout and you're like, shit, I failed. And so having those plug and plays where like you can manipulate it depending on where you're at in your personal life, because like people who set really high expectations are typically people who are also very high expectations of like their work, their job, their family, their relationships. Like it's just
Yep.
a principle that they live by, right? So they kind of set themselves up for failure. So rather than having that, it's more beneficial to kind of come out of that like all mindset, like you mentioned before,
Mhm.
and be more of a flexible control. I like to call it. So like rigid control, which is very like, no, I have to do my workout on the day that I said I was going to do my workout, rather than like flexible control, which is much more like chill because
Yeah.
something came
I,
up on Wednesday. I'm going to do it on Thursday.
Yeah, you're not going to totally miss it, but I like to call it same idea. I like to call it in command, out of control. Can't really have control, but we can be in command of like
Mhm.
our decisions and our mindset and our reactions, right? So, but I like that. I like the flexible, rigid too. Either
Mhm.
way, whatever resonates with you, but that is like it drives the principle home. And another way you can do that, I was just thinking as you were saying this, is I was kind of giving the example of timing, right? What weekdays are you picking? And do you have that loo day? And there's an episode way back, it's called the day after principle. Is like, if you are just trying to develop a habit because you're on the opposite end where you keep missing and you keep saying, like, oh yeah, I've been eating well, or whatever you're telling yourself that's not actually true to your reality, where you're like, oh yeah, I work out like quite a bit, but then when you actually track it, you're like, no, you're active once a week. Like you can be on the total opposite end of the spectrum, right? So in that case, I like to call it the day after principle. Is the day after you just promise yourself you are not going to miss the day after you missed. So that would even just put you at every other day. If you're just doing health activities, like you're physically active or you're getting to the gym or you're getting steps in or you're, like reaching your goals more every other day, you're still going to be moving towards your goals. So that's just kind of like a more simplified way to think about it if you're in that stage. If you are in the overtraining, like what you said, where you're being too rigid in the amount of control you feel you have to have over your diet and or eating habits, I should say, not diet. We don't like dieting, but um, if you are too rigid with that or with your training and you're now injuring yourself with your overtraining, we'll come back to the example of my foot. Okay. If I have like an 8,000, right now I have mine set as 8,000 steps a day. Okay. I know some people are like 10,000 or whatever you're at, right? I also know that I don't always keep my phone on me. I don't have a watch. So I know that mine doesn't like fully accurately track, but either way, if I'm so rigid that I'm like, oh, I must get these 8,000 steps on my phone a day, but I'm in a phase where my foot is really hurting me and doing that many steps is like murdering my foot basically. I need to be flexible enough that, okay, I'm feeling overstressed. I'm needing extra sleep. I slept in. I didn't go to the weight room and I didn't get all my steps in, or I'm not as far as my steps in the morning. What I would do is be like, you know what? It's summer. I'm going to take my kids to the pool. There's an outdoor pool. We will go and we will swim in the outdoor pool in an afternoon. Guess what? That takes the pressure off my foot. I'm still moving around. I'm being active. Now, if I was too rigid, I'd be like, yeah, but my phone isn't tracking this. It's not being included. So then I can't see it on my tracker. But I'm like, I know, dude, we swam for 2 hours. My kids had a blast. We had quality time. We were physically active. We got sunlight, which is also good for your headspace. And my feet were able to just move fluidly and freely. And they actually, like my ankles and my toes, feel so much better with that weightless movement. That's what I needed that day on that week. So, this is like a drive home example of how to be more flexible with it, but doesn't mean you sit on the couch and do nothing necessarily, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's like a full rest day like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people get more inside of like the mental space of like, oh, if I can't do it, I'm not going to do it, or like
Yes.
I'm just not going to do anything, rather than being like, okay, yeah, I can go for a swim and I can just go tread water or do whatever or do something, some
Yeah.
stretching or something like that, where it's definitely more of a mental block I feel like people have rather than like physically going and doing it. Especially if you
It is.
struggle more with like the burnout side and doing too much, then you get to that standard of like you've now set that to like every Wednesday I sweat profusely doing my hit workouts. And so
Yes.
coming down from that and just maybe going for a swim with your family feels like it's not anything. But
Feels like you're doing nothing.
yeah, it
You're
feels
actually
like you're
doing
doing
so
nothing.
much for
Hmm.
yourself and for them, right?
Yeah.
Like it is. It's a different mindset.
Yeah. But
And
then
it's
also like your nervous system just coming out of like that chaos, because I feel like people can get addicted to the chaos.
yeah,
And so relaxing feels uncomfortable, where like you need to shift that. Like you have to be in that uncomfortable, or you are going to get to a place where you're going to burn out and you're going to have injuries and it's going to be crappy. So you have to be comfortable with being a little bit maybe less active and prioritizing your rest, because that is a pivotal part of this longevity and the longevity of your health and your journey.
yeah. And if you change the pressure points too, like if
Yeah.
we're coming back to something more specific, Haley, your injury with your hip, right? Well, if you love running, great. There's a difference between loving running and being addicted to running in the
Mm-hmm.
sense of like your hip is already so messed up, but you can't miss your run versus being like, well, what if you hopped on a bike? You hop on a bike, it changes the angle of your back, it changes the angle of your hips. And now you're still getting movement in, but that could actually be really good for the movement of your pelvis and the angle of your back to take pressure off your hip, but you still get the movement. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where you got to look at like, well, what is your body telling you? Where are the pain points and the pressure points, and how can we change those pain and pressure points? Another example of this in the weight room would be you're getting some pinching or discomfort doing a squat. Well, do you need to just put your heels up on a plate and do squats, and that changes the angle and it takes the pressure off? Do you need to look down more with your head? Changes the angle, takes the pressure off. I've done it before where if I'm going to mess up my back with anything, it's usually deadlifts. Can you
Mm-hmm.
do a rack pull instead where you're pulling from the racks? You're not going quite as low. Can you mess with how wide or close together your feet are apart?
Yeah.
All of those little things can make the world of difference. And it doesn't need to take you down the road of quitting altogether or catastrophizing. You brought this up earlier, Haley, where it's very easy in your mind to feel like, oh crap, this injury is so horrible, or life is so crazy and stressful. How am I? I'm not going to be able to do this forever. I'm not going to be able to endure this pain forever. I'm not going to be able to handle this level of stress forever. We very easily grandize a situation where we're suffering in some way. We automatically think, oh crap, I can't do this forever. You need to bring it in because the catastrophizing causes this mental snowball and
Mm-hmm.
go, no, I just need to get through today. I just need to get through this week. Maybe it's this month. But that suffering and pain, it might only last for a month. Even if it lasts for 6 months, that is different than forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's the distinction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think just having that of just like all I have to do is go through life. Like you don't have to spiral into, you don't have to like get your mind going on all these situations that possibly could happen
Yeah.
that likely are not. I think I've mentioned this quote before, but I really like it, so I'll say it again. That people who live in the past are depressed, people who live in the future are anxious, and people who live in the present are happy. So really all that you can is be here, be in the present, and I promise you, like, the spiraling that your brain is doing, 99.9% of that is not going to happen whatsoever, and you're just going to, that like catastrophized situation that you're kind of like projecting into the future is going to come, and it's not going to be as bad as
Yeah.
your brain perceives it to be. I
Yeah.
promise. Yeah.
Totally. And I think time can help with that. Like
Absolutely.
like really looking at like how long has this been, or how long, like I was thinking about it even with when we're tracking things, right? Like if you are in an overtraining state, like what would you say to me if I was, if I was overtraining for X number of months, right? Like if I was just pushing, pushing, pushing for 6 straight months, that's different than if you're listening to this and you're like, oh yeah, well, I've been going hard. Maybe I'm going too hard. Well, how long have you been going hard for? Have you had like a 2 weeks of hard training? Because that's okay. We're not talking about 2 weeks of hard training. Like you do have to push yourself sometimes to get a certain result. We're talking about you are hard training, no rest days, low sleep, high stress at work for 6 months at a time, 8 months at a time. That's a whole lot different than we did like 2 hard weeks of training and now we scaled it a bit and we have like an active recovery week and now we're going to do a build week and then we're going to do an intense week. Like it's okay to vary yourself, because I think sometimes what can happen is the people who are in the overtraining state and training through anyways, even though they're injured and burnt out, are the people who are like, no, I'm good. I rest enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are like resting too much, who like don't push themselves and like are almost training too light for their goals, are like, oh yeah, I've been working pretty hard. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
there's like this weird dichotomy. I don't even know what to call it, where you're not,
absolutely.
it's the self-reflection
Yeah.
and the awareness and the tracking that you're like, no, you're not training hard enough. You're training way too hard. We need to be somewhere in the middle here.
Yeah, it's the I'm fine, it's fine people. And just
Yes.
some tangible things just to look out for if you do feel like you're on the spectrum of like too burnt out or overtraining. It's like you lose a lot of passion for it. Like you
Mhm.
go into your workouts and you really can't hit any PRs anymore. You aren't really into it, aren't excited. It's all just like you're in Groundhog Day and just doing it because I don't know, it's scratching an itch in your brain and you're in that routine. You get really irritable too, and sleep is obviously really bad. And you become a lot more like snappy at things. So, just some signs that you might be overtraining or in a really high stress, burnt out kind of state where your nervous system is like on all the time, and you're kind of like everything is threatening me right now. Um, but yeah,
That would be a good time to go get an adjustment.
me.
No, like
Oh,
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You should get an adjustment.
I
But
scheduled stuff. Don't worry,
okay, good.
I have
But
stuff.
no, like for our listeners to say,
Yeah,
like, a really good thing to do is like go get an adjustment,
yeah.
because your spine is your like gateway to your nervous system, your brain. It actually, when you specifically a neck adjustment, when you get a neck adjustment, it changes. Like they have imaging studies where they've done imaging of brains, and it changes your cortical activity when you get your neck adjusted.
Mm-hmm.
So it's such a good hack where you're asking someone else to help you. You get adjusted, you get that relief. Now you are in a like at least a bit more of a state to be like, okay, what can I implement that's going to now help me more long term to create something that's more sustainable and more enjoyable long term.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So
Oh
you,
god.
you you were ready for that. You're like, wait, me? Yeah,
Wait,
I
me?
guess you do need
I
to
am.
adjust.
I am. Don't worry. I got it.
Take it.
I got it.
Take care of yourself.
Heck yeah.
We so appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here and being part of the show. Well, Haley, thanks for being part of the show.
You're
But
so
you who are
welcome.
listening, we could not and would not do this without you. Please share the show with someone that is going to help. Make sure you click the subscribe button on YouTube. We are also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, wherever you want to listen. Follow us there. And in the meantime, be free, feel fresh, and live on fire.